she discovered what stars are made of. Then a man published it and took the credit. The story of Cecilia Payne-Gaposchkin, the woman who solved the greatest mystery in astronomy, was told her answer was impossible, and watched a man claim her discovery 4 years later. Every star you have ever seen is made almost entirely of one element: hydrogen, the simplest, lightest, most abundant thing in the universe. We know this because of a 25-year-old woman who proved it in 1925. A man then told her she was wrong. 4 years later, he published the same conclusion and received the credit. Her name was Cecilia Payne, and what she discovered is the most important finding in the history of stellar astronomy. Cecilia Payne was born in Wendover, England in 1900. She was a student at Cambridge University in 1919 when she attended a lecture by the astronomer Arthur Eddington, who had just returned from an expedition that confirmed Einstein's theory of general relativity. She later described the experience as transformative. She could recite the entire lecture from memory 3 days later. But Cambridge in 1919 would not grant degrees to women. Cecilia Payne could attend the lectures. She could pass the examinations. She could not receive the qualification. She was not officially a student, she was a guest. So she left. In 1923, she received a fellowship to study at the Harvard College Observatory in Massachusetts, one of the few places in the world where a woman could do serious astronomical research. And there, in the basement of that observatory, she found herself sitting in front of thousands of glass photographic plates containing the light of hundreds of thousands of stars, each plate a spectrum, a fingerprint of what a star is made of. The question nobody had answered, the question that had hung over astronomy for decades, was this: what are stars actually made of? The assumption held by the most respected astronomers in the world was obvious. Stars must be made of the same things as the Earth: iron, calcium, silicon, and other heavy metals. The Sun was simply the Earth, heated to extreme temperatures. Nobody had proved this, but nobody had disproved it either. Cecilia Payne was about to disprove it completely. Between 1924 and 1925, Cecilia Payne applied a new mathematical technique, the Saha ionization equation developed by Indian physicist Meghnad Saha, to the light spectra of stars. The technique allowed her to calculate from the pattern of dark lines in a star's spectrum exactly which elements were present and in what quantities. She worked through the data methodically for 15 elements: lithium, calcium, iron, silicon, and others. The results confirmed what everyone expected. Stars contained roughly the same elements as the Earth, in roughly the same proportions. The data agreed with the prevailing theory, and then she reached hydrogen. The numbers were not slightly different. They were not a little higher. Hydrogen was 1 million times more abundant than all the other elements combined. Helium was 1,000 times more abundant. The Sun, and by extension every star in the sky, was not made of iron and rock. It was made almost entirely of the two lightest, simplest elements in existence. She had found the answer. Stars are hydrogen. The universe is hydrogen. Everything we see when we look at the night sky is a vast ocean of the simplest atom there is: burning. Cecilia Payne wrote up her discovery in her doctoral thesis. The first doctoral thesis in astronomy ever submitted at Harvard. She titled it Stellar Atmospheres. Before it could be published, it was sent for review to Henry Norris Russell, the most powerful astronomer in America, director of the Princeton Observatory, a man who sat on her thesis committee. Russell read the thesis. He was impressed, until he reached the hydrogen result. He wrote back to her that the hydrogen abundance was, and these are his exact words, clearly impossible. He told her to soften her conclusions, to note in the published version that the result was probably an error, that the hydrogen numbers were, quote, almost certainly not real. Cecilia Payne was 25 years old. Russell was the most respected figure in her field. She did what she was told. She published her thesis with a disclaimer undermining her own greatest discovery. But, and this is the detail that history almost lost, she left the core conclusion in the text. Buried, qualified, softened. But there. Because she knew she was right. In 1929, 4 years after Cecilia Payne proved that stars are made of hydrogen, Henry Norris Russell published a paper in the Astrophysical Journal. In it, using different methods, he arrived at the same conclusion, that the sun is composed primarily of hydrogen and helium. The paper cited Payne's thesis. But the discovery, the fundamental rewriting of everything humanity understood about stars, became associated with Russell's name. He was the director of Princeton Observatory. He was the senior man. He was the one the scientific establishment listened to. Otto Struve, director of Yerkes Observatory on Payne's 1925 doctoral dissertation, said, "Undoubtedly the most brilliant PhD thesis ever written in astronomy." Cecilia Payne received no Nobel Prize. She received no major institutional recognition. After her PhD, she took on what Harvard called a series of research positions, low-paid, low-titled work that any male astronomer of equivalent ability would never have been offered. For years, her official title at Harvard was technical assistant. Not astronomer, not professor, not scientist. Technical assistant. She was, in the words of the American Museum of Natural History, indisputably one of the most brilliant and creative astronomers of the 20th century. She was never elected to the elite National Academy of Sciences. She published books. She wrote hundreds of research papers. She became one of the most sought-after instructors at Harvard, and her title remained technical assistant. It was not until 1956, 31 years after her doctoral thesis, that Harvard made Cecilia Payne-Gaposchkin a full professor. She was the first woman ever to hold that rank in Harvard's Faculty of Arts and Sciences. She was also made chair of the astronomy department, the first woman to chair any department in Harvard's history. She was 56 years old. In her autobiography, Cecilia Payne-Gaposchkin wrote, "Do not undertake a scientific career in quest of fame or money. There are easier and better ways to reach them. Undertake it only if nothing else will satisfy you, for nothing else is probably what you will receive." She wrote those words not with bitterness, with clarity. She had spent decades in a system designed to make her invisible, and she had continued anyway because the stars did not care who was looking at them. In 1976, 3 years before her death, the American Astronomical Society awarded Cecilia Payne-Gaposchkin its most prestigious honor, the Henry Norris Russell Prize. Named for the man who had once told her that her greatest discovery was clearly impossible. Named for the man who had published the same conclusion 4 years after her and received the recognition she deserved. She accepted it. In her acceptance speech near the end of her life, she said this, "The reward of the young scientist is the emotional thrill of being the first person in the history of the world to see something or to understand something." She was the first. She always had been. Today, what Cecilia Payne discovered is the foundation of everything we know about the universe. Every introductory astronomy course on Earth begins with the same fact. The Milky Way is approximately 73% hydrogen, 25% helium, and 2% everything else. Every star you have ever seen is a sphere of hydrogen, fusing into helium, releasing the energy we call light. The American Physical Society later placed her discovery alongside those of Copernicus, Newton, and Einstein as moments that fundamentally changed humanity's view of the universe. There is an asteroid named after her, 2039 Payne-Gaposchkin. There is a volcano on Venus, Payne-Gaposchkin Patera. The American Physical Society's doctoral dissertation award in astrophysics bears her name. And the universe itself, the vast hydrogen ocean she was the first to describe, carries her discovery in every star that has ever burned. Cecilia Payne-Gaposchkin died on December 7, 1979 in Cambridge, Massachusetts. She was 79 years old. Her obituary called her probably the most eminent woman astronomer of all time. Probably. Every time you look up at a star, you are looking at something she understood before anyone else. The light reaching your eyes has been traveling for years, centuries, millennia, hydrogen burning in the dark exactly as she said it was. In a doctoral thesis she was told to disclaim, written in a building where she was listed as a technical assistant in a century that had already decided she was not quite a scientist. She was the scientist. Every last one of those stars is proof. If these are the stories you want, the ones history buried, the ones that never made it into the textbook, subscribe. Every week we open another file. Next week, the ancient computer that shouldn't exist, 2,000 years old, found at the bottom of the sea, more sophisticated than anything built for the next 14 centuries, and nobody can fully explain how they made it.